Welcome back to GoDoBe EmPowerMe. I'm Joe Guskowski, your host, your guide, and your coach throughout this journey. Now, before we start, we need to recognize that this idea of excellence is a part of and something that affects basically every aspect of our life. It's in our world, both in our personal side, what we do at home with our family, our friends, our community, our church, and so on, as well as our professional side, what we do at work as part of our role, what we do in society, and the broader world around us. Now, this is where the four foundations of excellence come in. It is the basic blueprint that we're going to have to follow in order to get to where we want to go. However, before we can actually use this blueprint, we need to understand how we learn. So let's start by setting out the general process of learning and how it works. And this is going to help ensure that the ideas that we're going to follow, that we do them effectively. To do this, we're going to look at a couple of tools that we often use in the training industry. Two simple models that will help illustrate the learning process and how it works. The first one is sometimes referred to as the 4 stages of competence, and it involves a particular process that we're going to look at right now. The process goes as follows. The first stage that we all start in is known as the unconscious incompetence stage. Now, the word unconscious means that I am not aware, and the word incompetence means that I'm not very good at something. So essentially, in this stage, I'm not aware of what I'm not good at or what I'm doing incorrectly. This is unconscious incompetence. And like I said, we all start out in this stage. We go about our life blissfully unaware that we really don't know what we're doing, or if we're doing something or anything that's wrong or not correct. Then one day, something happens in our world. Maybe our relationship starts to fall apart. Maybe our health begins to deteriorate. Or maybe we've been called into HR for a meeting this afternoon. But at this moment, when this happens, we start to become consciously aware that something is just not right. So we have now become consciously incompetent. We've moved from the first stage to the second stage, from unconscious incompetence to the point we're now conscious of it. So now most of us here in this stage, we're now aware, we're conscious that, oh my God, something's not right, something's wrong in my world, and maybe that I've made a mistake or two. We suddenly realize that we need to do something about this. So that's exactly what we do. We recognize that we said something mean to someone, so what do? We apologize. If our performance at work is lacking, we correct it, we improve it. If our health is deteriorating, what do? We change our diet, we change our lifestyle, and so on. The action that we take in the second stage primes us to move into the third stage, or the conscious competence stage. Now, conscious competence means that we are aware of our shortcoming or gap, or whatever the issue is, and now we are making a conscious effort to overcome it, whatever it is. In this stage, we have changed our diet. We agree to go see marriage counseling or to improve our performance or not to show up late anymore to the office or wherever it is that we work. The key element of this stage are both the recognition of the thing that I'm not good at and the action of doing something to correct it. Now, when we get to this stage, we begin to think that, hey, I recognize the problem, I've corrected it, or I've taken some action, I've apologized, I've said sorry, I've fixed whatever it is. We've changed our behavior to some degree, and we think everything's fine. But there's a catch to this stage. The catch is that this is a transition stage. Most people can't stay in this stage for very long. Think about it. Let's say we were trying to fix things with our partner in our relationship, and we've agreed to go seek help, counseling, whatever it is. And we get some really sound advice that we then immediately act upon. We change our behavior. And for the first little while, it looks like, oh wow, things are starting to improve. They're starting to get better. We're doing what we're supposed to do. But then, a strange thing starts to happen as time goes on. Maybe a week or two, maybe a month or a couple of months later. Somehow, for many of us, we seem to drift back or to fall back to our previous behavior. And then, shortly after, we're back in stage 2, consciously aware that we screwed up again. We're stuck in stage 2. So our goal is not to try to stay in stage 3, this conscious competence stage, because we probably can't do it. we will either move back to stage 2, or what we're going to do is we're going to choose to continue forward until we move into stage 4. And stage 4 is known as unconscious competence. Now, unconscious competence simply means that we have mastered whatever it is, the behavior, the action, the outcome that we're trying to do that we were previously not doing or not very good at doing. To understand this stage a little bit better, let's consider some really great top-performing athletes. Whether they're hockey players, baseball players, basketball, or golf, or some other sport, doesn't really matter what their sport, as long as they are world-renowned or the very best at what they do. Now let's take a moment and think about how they do what they do. To us, watching them, it looks effortless. It's as if their actions are instinctive. They seem to know in advance where to go, how to move. It's like a perfectly choreographed dance. They've reached this stage of unconscious competence, which means basically they're doing what they need to do without even thinking about it. This for us, this unconscious competence, this is the ultimate stage that we want to be in if we hope to achieve amazing outcomes and ongoing success throughout our life experience. And remember, when we talk about being successful, we're not talking about being successful for a day, a week, or even a month. No, not at all. We want it from here on in, for every single day for the rest of our lives. Okay, so now we're probably thinking, that sounds really great, and I want to be in stage 4. And we all want to be in stage 4, the unconscious competence stage. So how do we get there? Well, here's where the second tool from training comes in. To fully understand the second model and how it works, we're going to have to consider the notion of driving a car, using a computer, or playing the piano. So how did we come to master it? The car, the computer, the piano. Did we simply read all of the instructions and magically or instinctively know exactly how everything's going to work after that? Where to put our hands on the car, the keyboard, or the piano? If we did, then we're absolutely amazing learners. However, for most of us in life, it's not the way it works. Let me show you how learning retention actually works. This, in training, we often refer to it as the levels of proficiency. There are typically 5 levels of proficiency. The first level, or level 1, is what we're going to refer to as the awareness level. Now, this level is all about basic knowledge. It's about the idea of reading the words, of listening to a speaker, or of watching a video. Kind of like what we're doing right now. You're watching me. The purpose of this level is simply for the viewer, the reader, to gain knowledge or fundamental ideas, techniques, or concepts. In other words, it's when someone is able to say, oh, I saw that, I heard that, I read about that. That's it. This means that we are aware of something, of whatever it is, but it doesn't mean that we fully understand the key details or the subtle nuances. So if we were just to sit back in this GoDoBe program and just watch the videos, go from one to the next until you've reached the end of it, does that mean we will have really mastered the ideas? Not at all. We're simply going to be in level 1. The second level is referred to as the level of understanding. This means that whatever the information, the ideas, or the insights that we gained from level 1, the awareness level, we now translate them or understand them in such a way that we get the core aspects or the mechanics or the information, the ideas, or the critical insights from them. This means that we know something more, or we have a deeper understanding of what we've learned, of how it works, what it does, etc. This also means that we've reflected on the idea that we've learned, and now we have a deeper understanding of it. That's all. This is how it works, or this is what it does, and maybe even sometimes the why it does what it does. For us in this series, this level 2 happens when I ask you to reflect on the modules. There, at the end of each of the modules, I ask you to take a moment and think about what we talked about, and maybe even jot down some notes in your journal. To be in stage 2, we need to understand the key ideas that are being discussed or observed. The third level is what is often referred to as the intermediate level. This level is all about the application of the knowledge that we've learned in the second level. Now it's about doing or showing, demonstrating, beginning to apply what we've learned. It means that we can start to do this to some degree on our own. Now we might not do it perfectly, that's okay, but we're trying and we're starting to get the hang of it. This is all about practice. Basically means that we begin to perform or to do the skill, to take the action necessary, or to do whatever the activity is, we do it independently. We're starting to. In this program, this is where we start to apply the ideas that we've talked about. When I ask you to go and do something other than reflect, it may be when I ask you to read a book, or do some online research, or take some step or action to try something in your particular world. When we do this, it means we've moved to level 3. But we don't want to stop here. Remember, our goal is to reach that 4th stage, that unconscious competence stage, where everything just happens perfectly around us. Now, to get there, we need to understand the next level. This is what's known as the advanced level. When we reach level 4, it means that we can do the skill, the action, the activity consistently without any assistance, guidance, or support from anybody else. We've become independently capable at this stage. Now, at this point, we're starting to rock and roll with the ideas that we've learned. At minimum is the level that we need to reach, because it means that we're starting to live the life or live our life to the fullest, or at least we're beginning to. This is the beginning of the unconscious competence phase of our target. Now, the final level, or level 5, is the ultimate level where we would like to be. It's referred to as the expert level. When we reach this level, we are now able to provide guidance, insight, and assistance to others because we have mastered the ideas, the concepts, and the actions. Essentially, we've become a guide or a coach for others. Once we reach this level, then there is a new expectation that I have of you. It is for you to share your knowledge and what you've learned with others. Share it, help people, show them, teach them. That's what the role of an expert is all about. Now that we're fully immersed in this state, we are in the unconscious competence stage, which is exactly where we want to be. Now, climbing this ladder of the 5 levels of proficiency requires that we recognize each of the steps requires the step before it. It's a build process. And if we try to apply level 3 before we fully understand an idea in level 2, then chances are we're going to fail or falter. If this should happen a few times, then we start to get discouraged, and eventually we will give up. And neither of us wants that to happen. This skipping of steps is one reason why most people tend not to reach their goals or be successful in life. It's because they're rushed. They want to have it right now. And because they haven't fully understood the ideas, they don't actually apply them correctly. Think about it. What would happen if we tried to drive on a major highway if all we did was to read the owner's manual or the driver's manual from the DMV? Probably not a good outcome. Now, as we go forward and explore the ideas, that's level 1. Then we must take some time to reflect on them to fully understand them. That's level 2. Otherwise, we won't be able to apply them in the right way. That's level 3. This means that if we simply whip through these modules quickly without fully understanding their core meaning, implications, and/or consequences, then we're probably not going to get to where we had hoped. All right, so now that we've understood the process of learning and the stages of learning retention, we can now begin to introduce the blueprint that we're going to use to move us forward. It's what we're going to refer to going forward as the 4 foundations of excellence. This includes the first foundation, which we're going to refer to as the potential, or of what's possible. The second foundation is about belief. That is the why it's possible. The third foundation is all about action, how to do it. And the fourth and final foundation is all about results, the when it happens. We're going to explore all of these ideas and much more in the coming modules. We've now reached the end of today's session. Here's going to be our takeaway for today. I want you to answer a couple of questions. You can put your thoughts down in your journal as we normally do. Here's the first question to consider. What does it mean to be excellent, great, amazing, or just at your best? Think about that for a second and write down any thoughts that might come to your mind. Maybe the thoughts that occur to you are things like, oh, you got to work hard, or, being successful, or a person's dedicated, or something else, whatever it is. Simply make a note of it in your journal. The second is to consider what is it that, or what are the barriers or obstacles that really prevent most people from being happy, healthy, and successful. This might include things like not having enough time, not having enough money, or they don't know how to do it, List as many as you can. And finally, I just want you to take a moment and reflect on what you wrote, specifically about the barriers and the obstacles. Do any of the barriers or obstacles that you put down in your journal, do any of them apply to you? Again, there's no right or wrong answers, and we're certainly not making any judgments on any of it. That's it for today's session. Here's our final thought for today. This is from Soren Kierkegaard. He writes, "If I were to wish for anything, I should not wish for wealth and power, but for the passionate sense of the potential, for the eye which, ever young and ardent, sees the possible. What wine is so sparkling, so fragrant, so intoxicating as possibility?" Until I see you next time, have an absolutely amazing day. I'll see you very, very soon.